What's the cost of your own slavery? Cities of the world wide whip take to the streets. The best sleight of hand we've ever seen. We sleep to be taught and we're taught by their dreams. Oh. No,
Good evening and welcome to the Live Register. Over the course of the series, we will be looking at various issues affecting communities in Ireland today.
Tonight we're going to look at hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, a process which involves the extraction of gas from shale rock and which is being proposed in a number of counties across the country. Fracking involves drilling deep vertical and horizontal wells thousands of feet into shale rock. A mix of water, sand and various chemicals are pumped into the well at high pressure in order to fracture the shale rock underneath and prop open fissures which allow the trapped gas to flow out. The gas can then be collected and processed. Proponents of fracking point to the economic benefits in the US, where the process has nearly doubled the gas reserves, leading to cheap gas and greater energy independence. In Ireland, 3 companies were awarded options licences in 2010. Tamboran Resources, Loch Allen Natural Gas Ltd and Energy Oil plc. These licences cover parts of 11 counties in the Republic and in County Fermanagh. A licence option means that the company has first preference on whether to seek an exploration licence. The deadline for the applications falls on January 2013. Proponents claim that fracking is a safe technology and will be an enormous boost for Ireland's economy. They also claim that it will greatly reduce our dependence on foreign fuels. However, not everyone is convinced on the suitability of this industry to Ireland.
Water supply.
Look, U.S. regulators are completely in the pocket of the oil and gas industries. I mean, they're totally captive regulators, but even dumbbell, bought out, bribed, and just, you know, guys who just don't care. Even those regulators in America would not dream of drilling that close to your water supply. Whereas you've got, in the U.S., for example, New York State, which is huge. It's, you know, 5, 6, 7 times the size of all of Ireland. And just New York State. Just remember, these are huge places. And the governor has just agreed to allow fracking there, but only in like 5% of the territory, because you cannot drill near any water supply or aquifer. You cannot drill or pipe, you know, within so many miles of homes and residences. There's no such thing as drilling in Ireland anywhere that isn't in through drinking water or irrigation water. You live in an aquifer, you got a big bowl. And so there's no such thing. You couldn't, if Ireland were lifted up and dumped in the middle of the USA, you would not be allowed to drill any of it.
Standing here, this place is called Mount Allen, or Mount Oilen, or Beautiful Hill. And we're looking down on Loch Allen, or Loch Oilen, which is the beautiful lake, on a beautiful day. So this is really as good as it gets. Now, this is where we are just at the minute, in Mount Allen, okay? And we're looking down on Loch Allen here. Leaving here and it's over this side of us, over here, and basically we're in, this is the county border, so you're in the very corner of Roscommon here. We have all North Leitrim north of us here, and all South Leitrim south of us. Leitrim is pretty much, you could say, like the shape of a butterfly, with Loch Allen being the body in the middle of it. So North Leitrim is the proposed area for the start of this natural gas extraction process. We won't see anything strange with the concept of taking energy out of the ground, because previous to the coal mining there was an ironworks in Arigna, so that idea of things isn't strange to us. But the problem with this is that this is a much bigger scale of extraction of things. You're talking about thousands of wells all told to take it out. And this is from the company themselves, that there will be hundreds and hundreds of wells alone in North Leitrim. So as we're looking at the map here, each of these little squares, this is the Ordnance Survey map, So each of these squares is 1 kilometre square.
Yeah.
So the proposed drilling, they can drill down 1 kilometre, then they can turn the drill horizontal and go 1 kilometre. So the next drill then has to be just 2 kilometres away, because that they can drill down and the two of them to come to meet each other, so that they can extract all the gas out of all the area.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But the idea of it, like when you talk about 2 kilometres, you know, sitting down to a meeting, it seems like maybe a bit of a distance apart. But when you mark in on the map every 2 kilometres square, well, it gives you an idea of what's involved. So this shows you the frequency of the 2 kilometre squares on the map, you know. These aren't proposed wells at the minute, but it gives you an idea of how close the wells will be to each other. So you can see alone what would be involved in this area. Now this, granted, would be phase 2 of the...
Would these be wells or pads?
These would be the pads.
So, and it's...
Yeah.
18, they're saying 18, the ballpark 12 to 18 wells on a pad. Each well needs 1,000 trucks to service it, and that's based on American trucks. So
1,000 trucks per well?
1,000 trucks per well in its life cycle.
And 18 wells per...
And there's 18 wells per pad. And then what they're talking about is, you know, they would come back again in a couple of years on those. So can you imagine the damage to the roads and the infrastructure and to community life, to the quietness of the area?
20 years ago we came here and we got 11.5 acres of sheep pasture, which was very, very wet indeed and ideal for trees. And at the time we were working in Britain. Our parents were both all from Mayo, and we decided that we were going to do something about global warming, because the nature of my job was computing. My husband was a biochemist, and we were seeing paper being used at a great rate. So we planted, with the help of the forestry people, put 6 acres of spruce all the way along here. At the back of that there's a steep slope, and it goes down to a river which runs across. On this side there's a ditch, it's a big triangle, and the lake shore takes the base of the triangle. We're standing on clay here, which is very, very dense, and below that then there is a much softer ground, which is very good soil, but inclined to be very wet. It's ideal for trees, and the trees dry it out, is making good land of it.
As we stand here on the southern shore of Lough Allen, there's a major aquifer travelling east-west, and if it was to be damaged, given that we're on the northern end of the Shannon system and the water flowing south and the proposal to take water to Dublin, there's major issues in an environmental point of view regarding the quality of the water and potential damage, because remember that all the science presently available says that the effects of it won't be seen for another 15 to 20 years.
The problem with this is, the big danger for Dublin, and this will be our major concern, is that there is plans to take the Dublin water supply. We're looking at the top of the Shannon system here. It flows down into Lough Allen, down Lough Ree, Lough Lurgan into the sea. But there is a plans for the future for the Dublin water supply to be taken from Lough Ree. If there's any leakages from any of the wells here, and in America there is leakages from the wells, and the company said that you could expect problems with a small number of wells initially, which would be only natural on such a scale of events. But if there's a problem with any of those wells at all, there's only one place it can all go, and it's going to head into here, which is going to go down to the Shannon. It's going to be in Lough Ree, and therefore it's going to cause problems with the Dublin water supply. So there is a lot of people that could potentially be put at risk for something that we don't have to do.
Well, the whole country, Tommy, will be put at risk.
The whole country.
We've been educating ourselves. I mean, we found out about fracking because some people from the Corrib came to Manor Hamilton to talk about their situation, and they mentioned fracking, and we were very surprised to find out that we were going to be fracked, and they asked us to watch the film Gasland. So I think that was in that was in July.
And that's how you found out from
Well,
them?
well, it wasn't. It was probably September before I found out, or August or September, and it might even have been June when they came. But it took a long time for the information to filter out to the public. But eventually, that led to the gas companies coming in and having public meetings, and people started to find out about it. There was no information at all from the government. Now we found out about things like our house, and we found out about what the procedure should be, and we're starting to realise all the gaps in the decision-making process.
What is our house? Maybe you could explain that briefly.
Well, our house is, I suppose it goes back to the Rio summit 20 years ago, when they decided that the best way to look after the environment is to make sure that the people who live in the environment have some input into decisions in relation to the areas they live in. Because they found that governments and large corporations were making bad decisions in relation to the environment. So the three pillars of our house are access to information, public participation in decision making, and access to justice. So if you don't have any one of those three things, there's no. It leads to a bad decision-making process.
In general, yes, I'd say most people are against it, and we were very. It's good to see how many local businesses actually are against it and openly coming out, providing their premises for meetings, etc., and so on and so forth. So it's quite good. Quite happy with that.
What are your main concerns in terms of what you've heard and what you've read about the fracking process?
Well, I did try and step back and think, what is good about fracking? And there isn't anything good about it. So we have every concern about it. It's the devastation it's going to cause to our health, which includes the water supply, the water we drink, the air that we breathe, the fact that it will more than likely destroy farming and tourism. I mean, you're not going to get tourists arriving from any other part of Ireland or from anywhere in the world and look at fracking towers, because they're not a tourist attraction.
The government are saying, well, they're going to go to the EPA because there's a knowledge gap. They don't know anything about the industry, so they're going to ask the EPA to do research. Now, we're concerned about health. Our primary concern is health, because of the personal testimony from people in America, people getting sick. And there was very little baseline work done in America. But yet the industry, since we'd say this industry got going properly around 2005 in America. So now there is a lot of problems starting to, animal health and human health problems.
This is an article that was done in a book called The Leitrim Guardian in 2012. And it shows the story from America. Okay? It shows you the frequency of the pads, like we're looking down on it there. You turn on. These are actually maps that were submitted to the company just to see is it roughly going to look a bit like that, and they sent them back and said, yeah, it's not too far from what it would look like. So we'll say the scale we've put things on here, about 2 kilometres between the pads. We're not exaggerating the thing or anything like that. That's what it's going to kind of look like.
Yeah.
So you can see.
Is there. That map is represented right
the
here.
Frequency. Yeah. This area above down here, there's just over 20 acres. So each pad that we were looking at on the map is about half that size. So you'd have one of those every 2 kilometres. Like the scale of the thing is what's hard to comprehend.
And the size of the pads, do you know roughly how?
The size of a soccer field.
Soccer field?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. Concrete pad.
Their plan is to drill down into this and expose the different layers of it and let the gas seep out of it. Basically, it's looked like a black stone, and this is where it has been in the river down through the years. It'll get tumbled about and break down into like a fine black sand. So like we know the gas is there, but there's no rush with doing this now.
No rush.
10 minutes to cross. Millions of years already there. Who are we to hold the whole thing asunder? We don't have to do this now. There's other alternatives that we should be looking at.
Earlier on, I spoke to Inika Schulte of Fracking Free Ireland about her concerns with the industry. What are some of the main dangers associated with fracking?
Well, there's a lot of dangers. First of all, I think there's no place for fracking in Ireland. I think
You don't think it could be conducted safely at all?
It can't be done safely. There is a lot of scientific evidence that it can't be done safely. Even if you try to do it safely, 1 out of 7 wells are leaking after. 1 out of 7 wells are leaking after a few years. There's a lot of danger about the cement casing around it, and the landscape in Ireland differs from that from America. So we really don't know what will happen here in Ireland.
Yeah, well, one thing is that one of our main water supplies, the Shannon, flows through the area that's designated as a fracking zone. Like, isn't this something that should be seriously highlighted?
Yeah, the entire Shannon waterway system is at risk. If there is any polluting or poisoning or contamination of the water, it flows from north to south. And here in Dublin, the government wants to, the drinking water supply for Dublin is at risk.
Yeah.
So if the Shannon is poisoned or polluted, then Dublin has a problem.
Yeah. Well, this is an issue that actually hasn't been taken up very much by people in Dublin, generally speaking. Why do you think that is?
I think it's very hard to get media coverage.
Yeah.
The people in the West, we try to raise awareness, but there's very less awareness, and it's very hard to get the media coverage. And if there's media coverage, sometimes it's not correct, or we have to write letters again, please, can you correct what you wrote down about the figures, or there's always a little bit twist in it. But we are very happy with the media who do coverage properly, especially the local media. The other point is Dublin is far away from the West, and we are living in the West. So the awareness and the concerns are in the people who are living in the license area, and especially in the option license area, the licensing options area. So we try to get involved more a little bit in Dublin. I did one presentation here in Dublin for the Irish Wildlife Trust. There was a global Frack Down Day on the 22nd of September. It was organized globally by the Food and Water. So there were all actions all over.
We'll have an open mic, so anybody that wants to speak about fracking is welcome to do so. The mic will be set up in about 25 minutes. Thank you.
The letters and emails that we've been getting from people in America are absolutely frightening about what has happened to their communities. People are actually sick and ill in communities in America because of this industry. It's not just about the environment, and it being described as an environmental issue, I think, is really narrowing it as well. This is an issue about our culture, about our land, about our society, about the way we live, about our future, about what we are leaving to the next generations. This is a massive issue, and so just to describe it environmental, even though that's obviously a major part, that it's a serious pollutant to the air, land and water, but it's a massive issue. It's a takeover of hundreds of thousands of acres of land in this country by one industry. It will be the biggest project, industrial project, to happen in this country if it is allowed to go ahead.
Fracking is actually an awful lot worse than what they're planning, what they're doing down at us. It's one hell of a lot worse. I've heard it from a fair few sources that people have great faith in the EPA. Well, if you have faith in the EPA, I feel sorry for you. Because judging by the record of every government department to date, they will let you down.
Where is the revenue from that gas going to go? It's going to go to Shell, and it's going to go to Tambor, and it's going to go to all these multinational corporations. Is any of it going to go to pay for any of the things that they tell us they have no money for? No, it's not. So they're actually collaborating with multinational corporations to pillage natural resources that belong to you and I, to the ordinary people of this nation, to future generations and to past generations.
One, two, three. A bridge person and then two at the end. And then the rest is just lying in the range. 3 to 5, the whole point along. And then number one, we'll see, can we get just myself and two more, and we'll see, can we...
Okay, everybody, let's start going. Let's start moving. So there's the first awareness, and now the students are coming in. The Young Friends of the Earth did a lot of, they organized a meeting as well during, in the week of the Global Frack Down Day, and a little bit what there came off from is now that a group of young people are setting up here in Dublin. We have at least 3 people, and they will have the first meeting to establish a proper group here in Dublin on the 13th of November.
Now, one thing is that the people who are, say, in favour of fracking will talk about our energy security and that this will protect our energy security into the future. Do you have any time for that, or do you think that that's a myth?
I think it's not a myth. They think, okay, there's a growing energy demand and we have to supply energy and we don't want to be independent of other countries, especially from Russia. But I think there should be a change of the mindset. Fossil fuels is outdated, and we should invest in renewable energy. And if Ireland change the mindset and think in green energy, and then I mean really green and not sustainable, like some companies say, oh, gas is sustainable energy. Ireland is surrounded by water, so we can go into the wave energy, the tidal energy, the blue energy, but it's the mindset. You have to change your mindset and be willing to go into the renewable energy and put in your energy, your energy in it and your money in it, invest in it. And when we are still talking about fossil fuels and gas extraction or what else, then we put in our energy, our money in that and not in a renewable one. And the other point is, renewable energy is clean energy. So it's not polluting the air. And then we can comply with all the regulations from Europe with the greenhouse gas emissions and all that stuff.
All right, Unica. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to speak to us.
You're welcome.
We tried to find some independent experts in this field to comment in favour of fracking, but unfortunately the only experts we could find were already working in the industry. We hope to return to this subject in the future and to have those independent experts on the show.
We were surprised to find that fracking isn't new to Ireland. Conventional fracking has taken place in the 60s, 80s and early 2000s.
This is a very historic site because in 1963 this is the first place that Ambassador Oil and Gas drilled, and they found gas. In the past, between 1962 and 2001, exploratory companies like Ambassador Oil and Gas, Evergreen Resources, Marinex, Iron Energy had been here, and they had drilled 6 sites in this region, and then many more, maybe up to 9 in County Fermanagh. So I just thought, as an artist, I would go and see what was there today and document them, because maybe this would give us some indication of how a large multinational corporation would behave. In those days, it was not commercially viable, and there was no such thing as fracking. It was just a vertical well. They went down about 3/4 of a mile, and they got a gas flow, but it wasn't strong enough for commercial. But there's a picture that I have of them letting off a gas flare. 18 years later, in 1981, it was re-entered by a company called Marinex. The chemicals that were used in 1981 were fresh water, 15% HCI, nitrogen foam, which is fracturing fluid, guar gellant, foam surfactant, breaker E enzyme, and Exide 207 bactericide. So those are just the ones that we know that they put down in the mix in 1981. So you can imagine in 63, 81, that well is just over there, just where that machine is. And then in 2001, this well is drilled, which is now inside this box, this protective metal container. So in this field, just down from the site that was drilled in 81 and 2001 and fracked those years, there's a very strong smell of sulfur in this field. And then if you come further down towards the river, you can see there's a white residue, which has been coming out here for years. So this is actually pollution that's happening right now in 2012, and it's been happening for a couple of years, according to the local farmer.
They said there was no more than shaving cream used in the process. So unfortunately, our association has put in a complaint on the 24th of February 2012. There's nobody have come back to us from any of the agencies, from the EPA to right down to Cavan HSE, Cavan Environmental, Fisheries Boards. Nobody has made contact to explain what the material is flowing into the Owenmore River, which flows through the village of Dowra and into the northern end of Loch Allen.
That's all for tonight. Join us at the same time next week. For more information, check out our website, theliveregister.tv, or our Facebook and Twitter pages.
What's the cost of your own slavery?